Do you need ideas for turning your 6x8 patterned paper into cards without making scraps? Hi, I'm Jess from JessCrafts.com, and I'm here to help you make the most of your crafty supplies and time. So let's get making. Today I have 6x8 paper busting template number 25. So there are 24 ones that I've previously shown and made videos for and described the whole process. There are 30 in all, and you can pick up a pack in the Etsy shop to get them all, and you can find some free ones on JessCrafts.com as well. I'll be really clear with all my measurements today so that you can recreate this card whether or not you have the printed template. I'm also working with 6x8 paper pad from Doodlebug Designs called Be Happy. It seems like they may have switched from 6x6 to 6x8, at least the latest collections that I saw for purchase had 6x8 pads, and I didn't notice 6x6 pads. And so I wanted to give them a try. I have generally found them, Doodlebug Designs, fun and easy to use. I will note they have some 3x4 cut aparts. I have plenty of sketches that help me to use those, but then I did notice they have these 3x8 inch like list type ones that I think would be great for scrapbooking, but might be more challenging for card making. So I look forward to sharing some ideas with those. And they also have this one, Sweet as Honey on the top. So these big 4x6 journaling cards. I have ideas. I think I would use them, but I do acknowledge that they're somewhat limiting. Like a 4x6 inch is bigger than an A2 size card. We're making A2 size cards today. And then lastly, this really large sheet of paper. I did recently release a video where I gave ideas for using large papers, but this one would not work. So even though I thought I had a pretty good idea, I mean, I could maybe see it. Like if I cut the Home Sweet Home as a large panel, but then I wouldn't put that on a card. So what is nice is they are always double-sided, so I can always use the other side. Anyway, let's focus on today's paper. I am going to start with this paper from the collection that has these little bees on it and flowers, and on the other side is a tone-on-tone sort of plaid type design. I think there's another word for that, but anyway, we're going to start by cutting the pieces according to the sketch. Be super clear with the measurements so that you can recreate the card. When you're using tools like paper trimmers, please follow all manufacturer's safety instructions. We're going to start by cutting the 6-inch side to 3 inches. So we're cutting it in half to 3x8 inches. Then that 3x8 inch side, we are going to cut the 8-inch side to 5.5. That's going to leave us with a 2.5 by 3 inch piece. That is going to be where we put our focal point today and our sentiment. Then we take this piece that is 3 inches and we cut it in half again to 1.5 by 5.5, and then these two are going to come along the back of the card. And I'm trying to position it such that I leave a little bit of this pattern paper showing on each side, but you can kind of mix up the sketch if you would like to, like maybe putting them both off to the side or something like that. This is always kind of a jumping off point, and I provide a sketch so you can see what I would do with the paper, but you can change it up, especially if in this instance you choose not to use cardstock mats, because these are 5.5 inches, and these are papers that have a lot of color and solidness in the background. I think that you could go without the mats if you so chose and then mix things up a bit. However, let us cut the mats that are called for on the sketch. So I need them to be 5.5 inches long. That is the full length of my A2 size card. So the mats are not going to be any bigger on that side. I will, however, make them slightly bigger on the width. So this is 1.5 inches. So my mats are going to be 1.25. I generally go a 1/4 inch bigger. You could go a smaller amount or larger amount depending. It would just look a little bit different than the sketch. And I'll cut 2 of these to 1.75. And so I have the mats for the back, and the other half of the paper, sorry, I don't think I mentioned this earlier, will be cut exactly the same way. So you're going to create 2 of the exact same card. You're cutting the same mats, the same measurements out of your patterned paper. And then I'm coming to another scrap from this collection, and this time I want it to be a 1/4 inch bigger on both sides. So it is 2.5 by 3.25. This piece of scrap that I had happens to be 2 3/4. So that works for the 2.5 inch side, and then I will cut it to 3 1/4 on the other side. And now I have my 1/4 inch mat, and I am ready to assemble my card. So now we have the card assembled according to the sketch, where the blue panel is here towards the bottom of the card. Again, you could like shift it to the top or something that makes sense to you. And we are ready to embellish. I have the 2 strips of paper in the back, leaving a little bit here on the sides. And I'm going to use the Collections Coordinating Stamp Set, Be Happy. I wouldn't ordinarily buy a stamp set to go with a paper pad. A lot of times I will buy like die cuts or other, embellishment packs. But this time I really liked this Just Because sentiment, and I felt like I would use it many, many times. And of course, the little bees are adorable. There's the You Are So Sweet and Happy Bee Day, so it has a variety of other things to go with it. And I am going to stamp this in some black ink. The nice thing also about this bee paper pad is black is going to go well with everything, so it's easy to pick out a matte color that's going to coordinate, an ink color that's going to coordinate, and I don't have to have an extensive collection. Now black goes with most things anyway, you can use it a lot, but in this case it works particularly well. So here's some things that I noticed, and they are challenges of my no scrap method. I did not get a perfect stamping. The B and the E are a little imperfect, and I got a smudge of ink over here. So the first thing that I'm going to do to address this is come in with a sand eraser. It's a Tombow Mono sand eraser. It says for ink, and I want to see if I could get that ink up since I'm acting pretty quickly. However, I notice it's pulling up the patterned paper and not just the ink, because it's basically sanding it down. And so this isn't going to work for this particular occasion. It works better on like white paper. But I always, I'm willing to give it a try, and just in case. And then the thing I would do to address the sentiment is trace over it with a black pen. Now it's not going to look perfect, and of course you could avoid this by stamping with like a stamp positioner tool, which allows you to stamp more than once if you have an imperfection. But that goes a long way towards fixing it up, just kind of carefully tracing it on. Okay, so since I couldn't use the sand eraser on that, again, not too much of a surprise, it's going to change the way that I embellish the card. I am going to use my embellishments to cover up my mistake. So I took some of the bees from the stamp set, I stamped them in Copic Safe ink, and I colored them being inspired by the colors that are in the bees in the background. I mean, simple yellow with blue wings, but I also chose my darker colors on the outside, and I used some lighter colors on the inside of the bee to kind of create a sense that like he's rounded. And then I put the darker color at where the wings meet the body. And that's how I chose to put my shadows in when coloring. And so here I want to cover up this ink spot with my embellishment. I think that actually works out really simple and well because the bee happens to be facing the sentiment. This one here, I think that also works. I like the other one just a little bit better, but if I also felt like now, this portion of the card wasn't full enough, I could add an additional bee. I could come in with some of the like flowers or mushrooms or something like that. I do think that it looks really cute with 2 bees as well, so I might just finish it off in that way. So I finished it off by putting a little bit of fake foam tape under them, which is just when I glue pieces of extra cardstock together, and I use that to pop up my elements instead of foam tape. And I did want to point out, I do tend to color or at least stamp some extras so that when a situation like that happens and I need another image, I had one on hand. I didn't have to go back and restamp and recolor another image. And if I don't use it on this card, then I have it for future cards and I can tuck it away like with the stamp set or with the paper pad, whichever works better for me. And also it helps because I had another little accident. You can see around his eye, the ink spread. Maybe it hadn't dried enough. It's very subtle, but there was a little imperfection, so I decided not to use that particular bee, but that's the other advantage of having a couple extras on hand. So If you found this video helpful, here's another video where you can find more ideas for enjoying your crafty time and supplies. Let me know you like this video with a share to your crafty community, subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss the next template or tutorial, and check the video description for product links. See you in the next video.